I want to talk to Charlie in 1 second, but Ken, we have a confused judge in South Florida, which, of course, I find it hard to believe that a judge could be confused, that you could have two grand juries going at the same time. Just some baffling decisions coming out of a judge who has already been excoriated by the 11th Circuit in previous cases for being out of her depth. Can you explain what happened with those Fort Pierce filings?
Well, in her latest order, Judge Cannon is essentially, well, first of all, she granted the government's request to have a hearing on whether Walt Nauda's lawyer, Stanley Woodward, has a conflict of interest that needs to be explored because he's representing not only Walt Nauda, but other witnesses in the case that he may have to cross-examine. So she granted that. In the process of doing that, though, she denied the special counsel's effort to file part of something under seal, saying he didn't justify that. And then she questioned why he was using two grand juries to continue to investigate whether there had been obstruction of justice in this case. Now, you know, there are some rules about continuing to investigate a case with a grand jury after it's been indicted. You basically have to be investigating pursuant to a separate indictment. Chuck Rosenberg can speak more to that. So it's not a nutty notion that she would question that, but it did seem like she was a little bit surprised that there were two grand juries in the case when the prosecution had already laid that out in previous filings. Joe.
Yeah, it seemed to be bad faith. And speaking of bad faith, the judge in the E. Jean Carroll case, where the judge said Mr. Trump raped E. Jean Carroll.
A lot of updates here.
Yeah, not
So
pleased.
A federal judge has dismissed Donald Trump's countersuit against writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump sued Carroll in June, alleging she defamed him by continuing to say the former president raped her, even though in May a jury found Trump only liable for sexual abuse. Yesterday, a judge ruled against Trump's argument, explaining that while the jury did not find that Trump raped Carroll according to New York penal law's narrow definition, her allegation of rape is not defamation because the word's common and more widely understood definition is broader. The judge also denied Trump's claim of presidential immunity, saying he waited too long to raise that defense. The countersuit is in response to a separate defamation lawsuit filed over comments Trump made about Carroll, both while he was in office and the day after a jury found him liable for sexual abuse. That civil trial is set to begin in January. Trump's lawyers say they plan to appeal the judge's ruling. What are the chances, though, he says something again and again and again, defaming her?
Chances are good he'll keep getting sued. Charlie Sykes, though, you know, this morning, Gerard Baker in the Wall Street Journal wrote a column that you were, I think you were referencing earlier, where he said, you know, Republicans really have to make a choice here. They can continue their year of magical thinking, or they can keep defending Donald Trump and in so doing forever alter the rule of law in America. Very true about that. Let's say the same thing about my brothers and sisters that I grew up with in the evangelical church. They are now fiercely fighting for and backing a rapist, according to a judge who said by the common definition of the term, Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. That's in the court of law. That's not in again, the pages of some left-wing journal. And these are the same people who all collapsed on their fainting couch because Bill Clinton had a relationship with an intern back when he was in the White House and said he was unfit to be president of the United States. A judge has said Donald Trump is a rapist, and yet they line up right behind him, just like these Republicans who are all law and order and rule of law, continue to line up against a guy, and they're doing it in a way that's eviscerating, or they're attempting to eviscerate the rule of law, the Justice Department, the FBI in the process.
Yeah, I think where we've come since 2015. Think what's happened to the American conservative movement. Think what's happened to our political culture. It's easy to dismiss Donald Trump as this narcissistic clown, but it is hard to understate the impact that he's had on our political standards. And to your point, look, you are seeing a full-out attack, not just on the culture of facts, which we had back in 2016, but now on all of the institutions of our constitutional republic. There's a great piece in the Washington Post that talks about how all the other Republican candidates are going after the courts, the system of law, the deep state, sowing distrust in any institution that might challenge or hold someone like Donald Trump accountable. And the willingness to accept lies, I think, has been established over the last few years. But think about the moment we're in right now. Donald Trump you mentioned what's going to happen in the future. It is rock solid certain that Donald Trump will continue to make the threats, will continue to make the insults. Everything that's happening now will get worse, and the Republican Party and the evangelical church will go along with it. And to your larger point, this has long-term implications. Things like this, when they are broken, they are hard to put back together.
And what Baker says in the Wall Street Journal piece, Reverend Al, is if Republicans continue this line of thinking, if they continue their support for Donald Trump, they needn't fool themselves. A second Trump administration would destroy the Department of Justice, would destroy the FBI, would destroy the federal government's rule of law, would destroy judicial independence. It would destroy the third branch of America's government. It would rip to shreds Madisonian democracy. They need to understand what they're doing, and perhaps they do. I'm just trying to figure out what is so important about this former reality TV host that they're willing to literally throw away Madisonian democracy to defend him.
That is what really has troubled me, is that it's clear that you can have political debate, those of us consider on the left, those on the right. But when you see what is going on now, I think the New York Times has a story about it this morning, where you have the actual institutions of government that would be totally altered by the politics of today, particularly if Trump were to win. Are these people really saying that's what they want to advocate? The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it and all of the institutional law pillars as we know it? Because that's where they're going. They are undermining the very principles that the country was founded on, and that is democracy as opposed to autocracy. And I think that is one thing to be caught up in the heat of a campaign. Is another thing to say that I want to completely overhaul how we govern and what we stand for as a nation. And that is the line they have began to cross in the politics of some of those that are running in the Republican primaries.
And for what? And for what, Mika?
What?
To lose again.
I know.
To lose again. I know they're looking at polls and no, he loses. He loses every single year. And he has since 2017. So they're willing to throw out the rule of law. They're willing to just ignore all of this to nominate a guy who's going to lose again.
Well, and they're also willing just to throw out common decency. If you look at what Trump has completely admitted to doing and what he considers normal, and the way he has behaved toward people, especially women, hush money payments to a porn star for an affair, telling the attorney of E. Jean Carroll, who a judge says he raped, and he was
and mocking her,
liable
and mocking her in the next debate.
Abuse, mocks her in the debate, defames her again. He's being sued again. Tells her attorney, "You're not my type." Can't even identify her and one of his wives. I'm just saying, common decency. Is this who you want? Forget all this criminal stuff that's going on. If you can't get your head around it, if you really think it's a witch hunt. You really deep inside think that's you, that you have to work with and look in the mirror. That's your choice. But do you want this person running our country, making choices, representing us?
That's a deeply disturbing thing. They have actually convinced themselves that it's a witch hunt. They have a guy who stole nuclear secrets. They have a guy that stole, all of these other things. And they go, well, why didn't Hillary Clinton? Why wasn't Hillary Clinton ever arrested? It was Donald Trump's Justice Department. I know facts don't matter to so many, but it was Donald Trump's Justice Department in 2017 that told Donald Trump there's nothing there. There's no crime. 2018, the same thing. There's nothing there. There's no crime. Trump kept going back to him. Donald Trump's Justice Department, of the people he appointed, Jeff Sessions, the people he appointed, there's no crime there. So when Donald Trump steals nuclear secrets, you can't go, yeah, but Hillary Clinton. No, you can't. When Donald Trump steals secret war plans to invade Iran, you can't go, oh, but Hunter Biden. No, you can't do that. But that's what they're doing. And they know it's a lie. They really do. They know it's a lie. They know the game they're playing, right? And yet they always...
They're basing themselves in the party.
They always say, oh, well, even in these op-eds and editorials where they actually take on Trump, they go, oh, yeah, but the Democrats. Oh, yeah, but Hillary Clinton. Oh, yeah, but Hunter Biden. They can never just say, it's wrong that he stole nuclear secrets, and no president or former president has ever done that in American history. It's wrong that he tried to overthrow a presidential election, and no, you can't. Yeah, but Hunter Biden, when we're talking about stealing a presidential election, and yet you do that. You do nothing but degrade yourself daily. See, those things that you write, those things that you say, they're with you forever on this. You're choosing a failed reality TV host and a failed politician over America's rule of law, over the judiciary, over Madisonian democracy. And it's just the further we get away from this moment, the more horrific it's going to look.
So a second.